Now, the more tantric or relatedly oriented character tends to find the fullest consummation in the dance with other and others. And the more yin, so that's the yang expression, the more yin apparently, I don't want to use the word monkish, but the more self-contained kind of character finds that passion, I don't want to say within, but in the abiding, not so much in the relating. And so that's that essay that, you know, I'm really looking forward to changing the title. It's currently called The Whiteout Dharmas of the Divine People. But I want to pull out the term whiteout, just the dharmas of the divine people. And way back at the beginning of my work, or there was a point, actually a transition, where there was really the first schism in our community, where a couple of people who had become co-teachers with me, who were actually very instrumental in Linda's awakening, and Van's, both actually, right after I published the book, The White Hot Yoga of the Heart, their response to it was, "We're with the wrong guy." You know, saying, we've just got a whole different orientation, and they eventually parted company. And gradually it became clear to me that I'm a more yang character. I'm a more tantric character. And my tantric expression was much, it was much more out there at that time. In fact, I felt holding back was the great danger. You know, in later years, it became very necessary for me to contain my energies and also my expression, so in part so that the new organizations and the other teachers could find their own ground. And I was able to do it with much more finesse, apparently. We haven't had schisms quite like that. We've still had some major people leave, but not taking half the community with them, which is what happened in, when was it? Late 95, early 96. But they were more, in my view, more classically yin kind of characters in their awakened presence. And I could see that there is such a vast gulf between the two character types that it would actually be hard to keep them in the room together. Now, we're able to do that more and more, although I would say, you may recall I was mentioning the other night this guy Bill Trout, who is a teacher who lived in Richmond, and I think Bill, to date, is probably the most classically awakened yin, or another languaging. In that book, that essay now, I talk about unconditioning yin and unconditioning yang. But I realized later, unconditioning yin is a correct designation because it's the letting go. You know, it's the primary guiding impulse of release, relinquishment. Renunciation as a simple spontaneous surrender. Letting go of conditions, letting go of identifications, letting go of cravings, let it go. Whereas the yang is more out there in all that, grabbing on, grasping, embracing, you know, pulling apart, going through all the drama of apparent entanglement, but the yang character is equally free at the core. And what the yang character's primary motivation or move is transformational. So yin is unconditioning, yang is transformational, transformational yang, or transformative yang. Well, Bill was a classic unconditioning yin character, and he was just really finding his stride as a teacher. And when he found out that he had been suffering hepatitis C for 30 years, and pretty much it devastated his liver by that time, and so he died a few years ago. And as I mentioned to the two of you, unfortunately neither he nor anybody around him, including me when we were at Transfiguration retreats together, I mean, we must have some language of Bill speaking and teaching on some of the old audio recordings of the Transfiguration retreats, at least, and maybe teacher retreats, probably. But we don't have a body of work that would have been produced if somebody had been yang enough to get a recording device and turn it on while Bill was giving forth. His Dharma was sublime. I mean, and not more than Cece's or Ted's or Hillary's or Krishna's, but in his unique way. And because the others of us are a little more either a mix of the two, I mean, everybody's really a mix of both. But, Bill was just pristine. And it wasn't because he had had a whole lot of Zen training. I mean, I don't remember what his background was. It's in that book. What we do have, actually, his essay in Dancing in the Fire. Mm. So we've got that. Great. But, we lost him young. And I think that's a great loss. I mean, if I were, let's just, for the moment, I'm going to indulge myself. You guys might not like this, but let's say Tovi and Zach stay together and even have a family. I don't know if this is even potential. I don't know if you're interested, Tovi or Zach. But just imagining, just playfully giving this actual characters rather than simply talking in the abstract. Let's imagine that your great-great-great-great-grandchildren come into this life in their time and get some of the history of all that came before. They get to watch this very videotape. And they'll hear me talking about this. Hi, guys. And they'll say, damn right. I wish I could have seen that unconditioning yin guy. The first real unconditioning yin, profoundly awakened, post-hypermasculine. In other words, not doing yin as a reflex, but just yin and on down the line. I wish I'd been able to see and hear that voice. So, you see, if what we're doing is as radical and revolutionary as our initial conversation, starting from the simplicity of great relief, the first secret. Most everybody feels like something is wrong, missing, or unclear at the core of life most of the time. We'll leave it most. We don't need to say definitively all and everyone all the time. Just most. We'll allow those who dispute that. No, not me. Okay. Starting right there, we're on to something different here, particularly in terms of how you relate to that. And that then comes back to Tovi's original question. How do you relate to the First Noble Truth? What's the distinction? We define the suffering itself somewhat differently. So that's a distinction with respect to the First Noble Truth. But it's the playing out of all four truths where we see, the full display of the differences. And, to make a final point, and then I want to stop sometime pretty soon here. It seems to me, if I can remember what I was going to say there. It's become increasingly important to me to emphasize that this is a transmission-based and pervaded Dharma. All of this comes out of the shift having happened in some bodies, and those bodies spontaneously, 24/7, radiating that new disposition and sometimes struggling, sometimes, easily articulating the shift that has occurred in them. And doing so, however, in the context of living out life in that transmission field with others. So that the others, as you have had the experience, don't just get delivered a teaching, a philosophy, and a set of, or a teaching as a philosophy and a set of practices that can be articulated and told, here, go and do this. And in this sense, we're building on that aspect of our lineage traditions, and especially mine from Bhagavan Ramana Maharshi and Sri Adida, Avatar Adida Samraj. I mean, I'll acknowledge him in fullness, even though I disagree with them on so much. But the force and the mystery of satsang, the transmission of the company of awakened being, the truth of awakened existence, as a bodily event, is the great container in which all this happens. And without it, this would be a, perhaps for some who are ready for it, somewhat more direct expression of a truth of why we're agitated and what we're seeking and so on. But it wouldn't be any more practically realizable. Because the transmission awakens, it doesn't just awaken you as if from coming from the outside, it coincides with your own core principles of existence. Your very life and consciousness resonate tuning fork style and intensify, therefore, in such a way that the fundamental transmission going on is from your own source nature into the manifest expressions of your existence and into all life. So we look for people to achieve autonomy, where they don't fundamentally need teachers and teachings.
Interdependent autonomy.
What's that?
Interdependent autonomy.
Interdependent autonomy.
Yeah.
Very, very good way to put it. That's what we're creating here. So this has been pretty cool.